Hello, world. Welcome to the 165th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's kind of raining outside, and it's in the temperatures in the mid-30s, so it's kind of cold out, which would be about 2 degrees Celsius. I don't know why it's fogging up. So this is number 165. Next week is number 166 climate change emergency protest. That'll be on February 11th, 2022. So right now it is February 4th, 2022. Carbon dioxide is pushing into the 420 level parts per million. Methane, carbon dioxide equivalency is somewhere between 500 and 800 parts per million. Why this matters is we should be around the 280 parts per million level, and instead we're at 420 to 800 parts per million equivalency, and it's not a good thing. And that would 280 keeps feedback loops from happening, and we're into a serious situation. CO2 levels haven't been this high since the Pliocene era, which was 3 million years ago. Back then, CO2 level was much lower than now, which is at 350 to 400 parts per million. Temperatures back then were 3 degrees warmer Celsius than they are now. Also, summers were 14 degrees Celsius higher in the northern hemispheres and southern hemisphere too, I guess. And poles were, the North Pole and the South Pole were 20 degrees Celsius higher than they are now. The oceans were 20 meters higher, which is 70 feet. So what I'm saying is that we've got this whole bad situation baked into what is coming our way, and our politicians and corporatists and everything else fail to recognize what is happening. And this is what's coming. So, there's no avoiding it unless we do drastic action. And even then, it's still going to come our way. So we got a whole world of hurt coming our way. We have a destabilized ecosystem. We're nowhere near, everyone keeps saying, oh, this is the new normal and everything. This is not the new normal. This is on the path to something more destructive, more inhospitable than we can even imagine, or I can even state to you. Things are not calming down, things are not evening out, and it's going to just get worse and worse and worse unless we get people in charge that make policies that are going to change the course of where we're going. The risk we're running right now is a runaway greenhouse effect. And problems that are coming our way are with CO2 levels being this high, are more methane being vented off into the atmosphere from permafrost. Weather patterns definitely being on the weird. In the United States, for example, they just had tornadoes again in the winter down south. So that's not normal. Food production is going to be dramatically affected due to heat, strange weather patterns such as flooding and things like that, and also the loss of fertilizers. And the soil destruction is going on. We're not replenishing our soil the way we should be, and we're using it up till it can no longer produce food or grow food. The real risk about it also is about when you have food insecurity and riots, and resulting from that is you get government destabilization, and you got a standing military around the whole world that has its hand on the trigger of nuclear weapons. So, we're really causing a situation that's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and nobody seems to notice. If you do say such things or do these types of protests, you're looked upon as being the weirdo, and in fact, you know what's going on and you know what's coming, and all your learned friends and all your learned, highly educated people that we know are just standing by with their thumb in their you-know-what and not doing anything about it. So right now, the Thwaites Glacier is in danger of collapse. There was a UN report, or someone reported that in the next 1 to 5 years, it's going to collapse. It's in serious danger. That's in West Antarctica. That represents 2 feet of sea level rise. There's also the Pine Island Glacier that's in jeopardy. That's another 1.5 foot of sea level rise. That will be destructive for all the coastal cities around the world. Another issue that no one talks about, and this is purely my theory, but with the unweighting of the glaciers in Antarctica, you're running the risk of volcanic eruptions. There are 138 volcanoes in West Antarctica by itself. They don't even know how many are in Antarctica. So 138 volcanoes, they don't even need to erupt. They just need to start venting off heat and cause even more melting of the glaciers. And the reason why that would happen is because there's no longer this severe, heavy ice cap sitting on top of the volcanoes, and instead they're going to be letting loose with their magma because there's no longer pressure keeping the magma in check. My also theory, and this has been published in 2016 by a scientist, but I thought I came up with this, but evidently they did back in 2016, that we're running a danger of, due to all these weight shifts from the glaciers to the oceans, the plate tectonic shifts. It's a change in weight from the glaciers to the oceans itself. So again, you get these plate tectonic shifts. With that, you get more volcanoes, you get earthquakes, all sorts of stuff. So the danger with sea level rise is that coastal cities are in definite danger. Countries such as Bangladesh are in trouble, and I have friends there on Facebook. Island nations have friends there on Facebook. Island nations are in danger of going under. So this is straight up murder, what's going on around the world. It's just a slow murder, and instead of seeing someone being gunned or knifed to death, we're watching island nations and nations of the world being slowly killed by climate change. So the problem right now, amongst the other 40 billion problems, is we're getting media distractions. They're so worried about COVID, and pandemic and things like that, that, you know, you're into these little semantics about whether one person says something bad about COVID or has their own theories, and they get banned. And you know what? Who cares? We got a whole situation developing. We also have a war developing, or going to develop, in the Ukraine between the United States and Russia, or NATO and Russia, and it's a ridiculous situation. We're literally, if we were the Titanic, we have smashed into the iceberg, we're starting to sink, and now the captain of two ships are yelling at each other about what position they want in the Arctic Ocean. You know, this war situation between Biden and Putin is nothing but the swinging of their appendages around, and someone's got to put a stop to it and call them out on it and tell them to cut it out. We got bigger issues going on. Literally, we're running the risk of extinction and death by carbon dioxide levels causing severe greenhouse overheating. And these two idiots are worried about who's going to worry about, you know, who's on what border and who's going to do what to whom. Nobody's doing anything to anyone else unless you two provoke each other to the point that you're going to actually do something that is extremely dangerous, such as nuclear weapons. And if this is your angle where you're going, just have at it already. Just launch them and get it over with. Okay? Otherwise, stand down and get your head straightened on, and climate change is a big issue. It's bigger than your little nuclear wars. It's bigger than your little positions and anything else. Okay, right now the sun is increasing in activity, and the sunspots are increasing, and that'll happen until 2025. And I believe that causes brightening of the sun as well. Bad timing. The CO2 level is extremely high. A brighter sun is not a good thing. More sun activity is not a good thing. Aerosol masking effect, which is particulates in the atmosphere, will decrease due to the cleaning up of the atmosphere. So the more things that go online to fight climate change, such as electric vehicles and things like that, it cleans up the atmosphere, but actually causes more heating as well. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't at this stage. El Nino, another hit on the parade here of fun. El Nino is due to come back as well, starting this summer. What that means is you're going to have the ocean venting off massive amounts of heat. So you think it's hot now, just wait till this summer and next summer, and things will get really interesting around here. Right now, we're dumping, due to carbon dioxide levels and greenhouse gas effect, we're dumping equal to 7 Hiroshima bombs per second of heat going into the oceans. The oceans are saving us right now. Eventually, they will not save us, and they won't be able to hold any more heat, and they're going to start venting it off, and we got a real problem that will develop severely. So now we're into an utterly catastrophic situation. You know, you have the meltdown of the ecosystem going on. That's the good news. That's the best thing we can hope, is for a catastrophic situation. We are absolutely risking, like, don't look up. We have a 100% chance of the ecosystem failing us, where we won't have food, we won't have an environment you can live in. It'll be too hot, too wet, too whatever, too everything to continue living on this planet. And this is a 100% chance of that. This is what's going to happen. This is where we're headed, because we have headless leaders that don't have a friggin' forward thought in their head. And I'm not talking 2100. I'm not talking by the year 2050. I'm talking years away. And this is coming in my lifetime. And if you have children or grandchildren, you better look at them and get your head screwed on right and start voting for the right people. So risk along the way. So the risk we're running into is severe heat waves, fires, drought. Right now, in the United States, USA Drought Monitor, if you go online, all but 6 states, other than Alaska, are all but 6 states are in some form of drought within the United States. Puerto Rico is in a severe drought, as is Hawaii. We're running the risk of deluges such as Category 6 hurricanes, which hasn't happened yet, but I believe a Category 6 with the heating of the oceans is entirely possible, which will absolutely flatten entire cities. Like if it hit Miami, it would absolutely flatten it. Tornadoes worldwide are now being seen. It used to be just the United States had these weird phenomena called a tornado. Now they're everywhere. Food shortages, you're going to start seeing your grocery shelves being more and more empty for various reasons. You got 400 nuclear facilities, and that requires engineers to be there. And if they're in a food shortage situation or their family's in jeopardy, they're not going to report to their nuclear facilities to work on that. That could result in a horrible situation. Of the nuclear facilities, 100 of them, 100 nuclear facilities are along the coastline. So what can happen when the coastline actually starts flooding? I would think the nukes, as in Fukushima, are in big trouble. So also you have nuclear weapons. You know, you got these countries, these rogue countries, including the United States, that when they get desperate, are going to start whipping off nuclear weapons because they're there. You know, you get a rogue captain or something or other of a nuclear submarine that just has his grudges, and he just decides to launch a missile attack. So we need to figure out what we're going to do with all these nukes, nuclear facilities, and nuclear weapons before things get out of control. So we're risking the risk of government collapse, which could lead to fascism around the whole world. And I'm not just talking United States or Russia, I'm talking everywhere, where the government takes over militarily and relegates its citizens to concentration camps or whatever, or forced moves or whatever. So what do we need to do? We need to stop the subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, first off. If no administration around the world, including the United States, can stop doing that, then they're not serious about climate change. We need to stop voting the same people in. You know, these corporatist, warmongering people that are in charge have no vision. They don't understand what's happening. And, you know, I saw something dumb on TV which said Dwayne Johnson, The Rock in 2024. You know, he's an actor and everything. But actually, you know, as dumb as that sounds, someone like that would actually bring our country together. And even though he doesn't have a clear-headed thought in his head about what the future is involving, it might actually be smart to have to tear down the system and start all over again. But we really don't have time for anything right now. We're so far down in the hallway. We painted ourselves into a corner. We're going to have severe problems trying to get out of that hallway. So also what we have to do is stop having right versus left. The conservatives, so-called conservatives, and the so-called liberals need to stop battling each other. They need to realize that each other are not the problem. What the problem is we have utter corruption and greed going on in all the world's governments. You stop having fights between the liberals and the conservatives, as I said. Stop watching mainstream TV all the time. You know, you need to go onto YouTube and get what is really happening in the world. There are plenty of news organizations and people broadcasting as to what is actually happening, as opposed to your mass media and NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox Television, and you're not getting the real news. If you turn on YouTube and actually do your research, you're going to find out there's a whole world happening out there, and Americans are totally stupid as to what's happening. So you got to get away from mainstream media. You have to get educated about what's happening with climate change. There are plenty of great programs on TV or on YouTube. You got Environmental Coffee House. You got Paul Beckwith, who's an excellent professor in Canada. You got this webpage. You can go down on my webpage and Tanya's webpage and get educated about climate change. So I'll catch you next week. That'll be February 11th, 2022. That'll be number 166. I wish I had better news to tell you, but right now we're headed in the wrong direction, and we need to get together as to what's going on and get educated about what to do about the future. So I'll catch you next week. See you later.